Ok, architetto. Può partire. Grazie.
Buongiorno a tutti, salve. Sono Roberto Righetto, sono uno dei consiglieri dell'Ordine degli Architetti di Padova. Benvenuti a tutti, a chi ci ascolta via YouTube tra la cittadinanza e a chi ci ascolta invece tramite la piattaforma di formazione del nostro ordine. Apriamo oggi questo ciclo di seminari intitolato Tracciati del talento al femminile. È un ciclo che è stato promosso dal nostro ordine con il patrocinio di vari enti tra la rete delle professioni tecniche, l'ordine degli ingegneri, il collegio dei geometri, l'ordine degli agronomi e forestali e i comitati pari opportunità. Abbiamo voluto promuovere questo ciclo di seminari per parlare di talento femminile, non per motivi ideologici, ma per promuovere in una situazione di difficoltà oggettiva per tutti e ancor di più per le donne dal punto di vista lavorativo, ma per dire che sostanzialmente non vi sono differenze su questo, però bisogna valorizzare la presenza, facendo semplicemente vedere come le attività delle architette, delle pianificatrici e delle paesaggiste c'è sempre stata e come sia importante e rilevante oggi e ieri. Allora questo ciclo di seminari che parte oggi e ci verrà impegnato per tutto l'anno sarà composto da due parti. Una, alcune lezioni, alcune Lectio magistralis di esponenti attuali dello scenario architettonico e altre delle letture invece di esponenti del passato che hanno fatto la storia dell'architettura. Per quanto riguarda il programma che parte oggi, vedrà alcune delle letture da parte di questi esponenti e oggi avremo l'onore di ospitare Odile Decq e successivamente, anche se in fase di definizione, avremo Farshid Moussavi da Londra, avremo delle esponenti dello studio di Figlio e poi dopo ci sarà un'incursione storica su Gaudenti e siamo in attesa di risposta per quanto riguarda lo studio Grafton Architects. Nella seconda parte dell'anno poi vi saranno una serie di letture che riguarderanno invece letture storiche sulle donne del Bauhaus, Egle Renato Trincianato e Nannibale Bellavitis tra le esponenti più locali, e poi altre letture come quelle su Lina Bobardi, Frank. Al di là di questo, partiamo subito e per noi è un piacere e un onore avere con noi Odile Decq, che è una delle esponenti più conosciute e più famose della scena architettonica, non solo francese ma internazionale. Non ha bisogno di presentazioni perché le sue opere sono presenti in Italia, in Francia e in tutto il mondo, in Cina, come ogni esponente appunto, il suo campo geografico è esteso a tutto il mondo. E anche la sua attività spazia dagli oggetti di design fino alle infrastrutture e alle opere più complesse. E questo è per noi un onore e vorremmo che Odile Decq ci parlasse delle sue ricerche, di quanto sta intraprendendo e di quali sono le strade che lei vede attualmente presenti nella scena architettale. Et bien, alors, Madame Odile Decq, bonjour, bienvenue. Merci beaucoup d'avoir accepté notre invitation. Je vous laisse la parole pour parler de votre recherche et votre travail. On peut parler en anglais et je vous laisse la parole.
Il faut
Merci
que vous...
beaucoup.
Je vous en prie, merci beaucoup, merci à vous. Je voudrais que vous me redonniez le partage d'écran.
Oui.
Parce que je ne l'ai pas. Okay, so good afternoon to everybody. Buon pomeriggio a tutti. That's it. I can't do more. I'm very glad to be with you this afternoon and to start this series of presentation of female architect, because even if 10 years or 15 years ago I was a bit fed up about being presented as a woman in architecture, I have discovered step by step that it's really important, because there is a kind of invisibility about the women in architecture, and all the women that you have invited for this series will be are in front and could be representative for the younger one, and especially for the students and for the other architect who doesn't have the possibility to be in front. And this is very important because we are still so few and too few to be in the field of architecture, even if there are a lot of students who are female in a school of architecture. So my lecture is titled Horizons, because for me, I'm from the sea. I'm from Brittany, and horizon for me is a line that I've been fascinated for years, since my childhood. And this is a line that when you go sailing on the sea, that you want to reach with a point that you make on the horizon line, and you want to reach it. But going there is not a direct way. It's always a negotiation. It's always sometimes very tortuous, depending on the current, depending on the wind, depending on the weather. And but at one moment you can reach the point that you wanted to reach. But when you are there, so the horizon line is still in front of you, and you have to go further. So you always have to. You never reach the point, and this point is always going further in front of you, and you want to overpass the horizon line. And I use this as a comparison with what is my way of doing architecture. For me, architecture is I try to have a focus on one point that where I want to go when I start a project. But in the meantime, from the beginning to the end, this is a long process. This is a process, and this is not a direct line. It's sometimes tortuous, it's sometimes slow, it's sometimes smooth, and this is something which is a negotiation again. It's a negotiation with the condition of the project, the site, the client, the budget, the geographical condition of the site, the people, the users, etc. So for doing that, you have to make to have a direction. And at the end, when you finish a project, you want to start again a new one to push further your ideas. And this is for me exactly the same as sailing on the sea. I do architecture, but I also do, oh, it doesn't go further. What is that? Okay. I also do installation. So I start by presenting you some installations that are very representative of my work. And this one is the first one that I did in 2004 in New York. in an art gallery, which was artist space, doesn't exist anymore, and where they asked me to present something without presenting a project by itself. And I built a kind of a cabinet, and this cabinet, to go there, you have to take a ramp, a little path in between walls, and the floor is not horizontal, it's a ramp, it's a slope. And when you go in, the floor is again not horizontal, and it's oblique. And the limit of the space is are multiple walls, and these walls are not vertical. They are not the same. They are not similar to each other. And you have to. And there are some which are painted in white, and some that are covered with a mirror. And because thanks to that, when I was projecting images on the white surfaces, they were reflected in the mirror glass on the opposite side. And because of the fractured surface by the different modules of the walls, it creates other spaces. It's a sort of explosion of space, and the space is not the real space that you are living in. When you are there, because of this perception, where you discover a space which is not in the mirror, which is something reflection in the mirror, and which is not the limit of the space itself, and because of the oblique of the floor, your body is a bit destabilized and your perception is destabilized. And I like this idea to make the perception of the space a bit ambiguous, a bit, how can I say, not only ambiguous, but also a bit confused, and that could be that you have to go further to search for what it is because you don't understand how it is built. And in 2007, I was renovating an art gallery close to my office in the street. And the director of the art gallery asked me at the end of the renovation to present myself into the gallery and to present something. And because it's an art gallery, I didn't want to present, I was not thinking about presenting architecture in an art gallery because this is not a piece of art. This is not directly a piece of art. And I was thinking about a little drawing. I was sitting back in my process, and I was remembering this little sketch that I was doing sometimes for some people in my office to express what is unstable, the instability. Because, and for doing that, this is one pillar, a beam, very long one, and two weight. One is very large, it's a balloon filled of air, and this little one is a little balloon made of aluminum molded, filled with sand, grain by grain at the end to reach the stability, because this is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, this is 6 meters long, and this is just posed on it. This is not attached to it. And this is like that. And this piece was filling the space on itself, all the space. And this is it was very impressive. When we were going to the balloon, because the balloon is nearly filling the space, but not touching the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. But when you were walking on the B-side of this balloon, because the air was moving, the air was starting to move because of the presence of the body of humans, and the balloon was immediately starting to move a little bit, even if it was stable before. Because of the displacement of the air, the balloon started to displace itself, and it was showing the possibility of instability. And the little one was very static, because it was the counterpoint of this balloon at the end, at the extremity, and this one was very stable. In France, we have a garden festival each year in Chaumont-sur-Loire, close to La Loire, the river. And in 2009, they launched the application for that, and the thematic was colors. And somebody in my office said, why not doing a black garden? Because you have to propose a garden, and you build it when you are selected. So they selected our proposal, and we built it in 2009. And this garden It's very small. This is 300 square meters with the fence that we see that, the place that is limited by green. And I was doing a black garden because I was thinking that if it's colors, I can be confident that all the landscapers, all the architects or the interior designer who will do gardens will use a lot of colors. And I wanted to calm down the play of having, or the game of multiple colors by doing a very silencious place, a very silencious space, a black garden. And this black garden is built by, is delimited by sheets of glass, of black glass, that are not reflected, but but become reflective as soon as you are on the B-side. And they are playing and reflecting the sun and the shadow inside. The ground itself is filled with tire powder on a very thick distance for 30 centimeters deep. And because of this tire powder, the space becomes very, very, the sound is very absorbed, it's totally absorbed. And in the center, you have a little font, which is just a film of water above a black plastic. So this is so silencious that when you are coming in and you have one person at each extremity, if they want to start to talk to each other, this is not possible because they don't hear each other, because the sound and the ground is absorbing every noise. And the space is black, but it's brilliant. Sometimes it's bad. The sound, the glass are reflecting the surrounding and play with different perception again. And in 2011, in SCI-Arc in Los Angeles, the School of Architecture, they have an exhibition space, and they invite architects to present something in their exhibition space. And usually architects are building an object. And I have decided not to build an object, but to build a space. And I created that plan, which is done by, designed by four triangle, equilateral triangle that are totally regular. And you see there are passages in between the different triangles, but not regular, not in front of each other. And what you perceive as very regular is totally irregular, thanks to the fact that the walls are not vertical. They are all oblique and again covered with mirrors. So from above, this is a black object, but inside, this is a reflective spaces. When you come in, you enter the black object, and you are in a space where the limits are not totally defined. You don't know precisely where is the angle, except when you look above, and you don't see where is the limit between the floor and the walls, and where are the corners. So this space is particular because when you have in the mirror, you have the reflection of the doors or the passage that you have on the opposite side, but sometimes it's a real passage, sometimes it's not a real passage, this is just a reflection. So this is a place where people at the opening were really playing by being lost in a way, and to try to find their way and to be reflected inside. So it was a very joyful space where people were enjoying being lost in a space. I love this ambiguity again, and I love to play with that. So I'm sure that you maybe all know this project and this building, which is a macro, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome, that I won in competition in 2000 and has been finished and delivered and opened in 2010. So it's outside the old Roman surface, the old Roman city, because we are in the 19th century extension of the city, where it was a bit industrial and mostly residential, but it's really in the center. And it was the site, a part of a site of the old brewery Peroni. And this place was the place where they were using the ice and playing with, doing something, working with ice for doing the brew. And Marcella, est-ce que vous pouviez... sorry. Marcella, est-ce que vous pouviez arrêter de faire la pression avec la machine parce que c'est insupportable. Est-ce que tu peux demander d'arrêter la pression? Merci. So the site was already like that. It was 2 long volumes on both sides of a courtyard and an entrance with another volume. And the competition was for this back side, which was at the corner of 2 streets. And thanks to in the competition brief, it was said that we could enter and create a new entrance at this corner instead of this one, which was the previous one. But when I was looking at the site itself, I discovered that the difference between this entrance and the further new entrance is 4 meters. So this one is lower from this one. And thanks to that, I decided to stay on the B-side, on the back side of the former facade, and to not show contemporary architecture outside except at the corner, at the entrance. And it was asked to keep the facade, but it's not totally obligatory. But I decided to do it and to build inside, because I didn't want to be too much oppressed by history and by the history of the site, the history of the city, the history of everything, and which is a kind of heaviness. I discovered that, a heaviness. History is that heaviness on the shoulder of the architects in Italy, and especially in Rome, because you have to care a lot about the history and especially about the Roman time. Even in between the Roman time and today, we have 20 centuries that are past, but this is like that. And because of that, I decided to not be too much concerned by the history and to create the new world for the contemporary art inside on the back of the former facades, even if the facades were not so interesting because they were normal industrial facades. So for doing that, I decided to create a space between 2 surfaces. The surface which is at the ground level of this entrance, which is a corner there, and which is the continuity of the street. And the second one, which is the terrace, the roof of the extension, with a ramp going inside this little courtyard. Because between that courtyard and the roof, it's only 4 meters, and between the entrance and the roof is 12 meters. So this is the possibility to cross the space, taking the ramp, crossing the terrace, using that terrace as a space, as a public square for the city, because around there are no square, and taking a staircase down to the street. So crossing the building without entering into the museum, just to enjoy the surface of the roof, which is a square for the city, where the restaurant is under the old structure that I had to keep, and where you can enjoy sitting there, drinking a coffee or a glass on the square, as everywhere in Rome. In the center, as everywhere in Rome, I wanted to build a fountain, and this is this glass box in the center of the surface, which is a fountain. I'm not sure that it works now, because it was complicated for them to make it working. And on the basement, on the ground floor, we have the big exhibition room that is 1,000 square meters. And this big exhibition room, at the beginning, because the competition was not at the beginning for the Museum of Contemporary Art, it was for the extension of the the Gallery of Modern Art. And they said in the brief that this space of 1,000 square meters could be used as an exhibition space, as a place for having theater, for having choreography of ballet, and for having every event that you could have in a space where you have a gallery of modern art. But when, after the competition, the city has decided that this project will become the Museum of Contemporary Art for the city, it has been only dedicated to contemporary art. So this space, thanks to this multifunctional program for this space, we had some constraints of height, and we played with the height of the roof. So this roof here is at 11 meters above the floor here, and at 7 meters at this place. So in between, there is different tectonic plaques, tectonic folders, sheets that play with the surface and help the square to not be totally regular and to be a kind of a landscape, a kind of a mineral landscape above the museum. So for doing that, I wanted to build a big structure because I didn't want to have any pillar, to have no pillar, something very, very flying above the museum without having structure, heavy structure to support it. So this is a steel structure, huge steel structure, which is supporting this roof, which is 2,000 square meters of stone. So this is the entrance at the new corner. And this entrance, thanks to the curve of the street, the cafe, which is above the entrance, is perceived when you are in as being into the street. And you enter under the cafe, because the cafe, as you know, and as you live in Italy and in Rome, you have cafe everywhere in every street. So I wanted to have a cafe, the cafe of the museum in the street. When you want to enter, you have to pass under the cafe without pillar because it's in cantilever, supported by the facade on both sides. And you have to enter a little garden, which is because they ask in the brief to keep a garden on the ground floor. And I did a little garden to enter into the lobby of the museum, which is a huge space where you cross the space horizontally and vertically by pass rails, staircase, lifts, etc., to have a promenade at the third level. You have the first level, the first floor, which is the first level at the ground floor. You have the third level, which is the roof over on the terrace above the museum, and you have a third one in the middle, a second one in the middle, which are the pass rails, crossing the space and traveling into the space to enjoy going in different directions and having a possibility to choose where you want to travel, where you want to go, and how you want to travel this museum. And this passerelle at mid-level is going, it's at the level of the former entrance, old entrance, and it's at the level of the over surface, over the auditorium, which is, again, a space for exhibition. Under the fountain, and the fountain is a glass, it's a big window to light, with a natural light, the lobby underneath, the foyer underneath. And I have decided during the process, and when we were nearly finishing the building, I decided to paint this foyer all in black. Because I know that usually contemporary art museums are white. And because I don't know, of Richard Meyer, who did from the beginning of the 80s a lot of contemporary art museum or art space. Everybody thinks that space of contemporary art have to be neutral white box. But I was reading at the beginning of the competition, I was reading back a discussion between the French artist Daniel Buren and Frank Gehry that was transcribed in a little book where Frank Gehry was asking to Daniel Buren, the artist, if a contemporary art museum has to be white and neutral. And Daniel Buren, who is an artist who is playing with space, answered to Frank Gehry that it was not obligatory. It was possible to have another kind of space, but the space has not to be too strong. This is a kind of a balance between being specific and being neutral. So they say you have to balance between two kind of spaces. This is why I decided that the foyer, which is a public space, could be black and could be another neutral white black spaces with the walls could be places also for exhibition or walls for exhibition when the exhibition rooms are white. So in the center of this foyer, we have the auditorium, and the auditorium is shaped a little bit not regular because I wanted to express a kind of instability again with this auditorium. And the floor down is digging to have a slope underneath, and you have the lighting underneath, and sometimes some directors were having some screens to screen the video collection of the museum. To go into that auditorium, you have to take this ramp, and through this ramp, you enter the space, which is totally red and totally bright red, when the outside is matte red. Because inside, this is really the heart of the museum. This is the heart of the place for art. This is a place where artists can meet the public, can discuss the public, where they can debate in between them, where this is the communication and sometimes the making of the art. And when during the process of the construction, the city started to talk about the furniture and started to talk about the design, the interior design. And they asked me if I wanted to design the furniture, also to bring the furniture into the museum. And this is something that I really enjoy. It's the question of doing what I call the global design. So the design in architecture is not only for the envelope, for the object itself, for the architecture, for the building, but for me it goes to the furniture, it goes to the little details, to the door handles, to everything, to be able to have a coherence between everything which is inside, and between the inside and the outside, and to be coherent. So I decided to design the seats of the auditorium, which are long benches like that, and the arms are movable, and they are pivoting, so you can sit 10 all together, or you can sit one by one if you keep the arms lower. And on the back side, you have a little lamp and a tablet. And when the tablet is stored, the lamp is off, and when the tablet is out, the lamp is on. So you can take notes with light during the lecture when you are in the dark. As I told you, the exhibition rooms are white, more neutral in a way. The concrete floor is gray, and the walls are white, and the ceiling is black. And the ceiling is black because there are a lot of shafts, a lot of technical devices. And I didn't want that the vision inside the room could be perturbed by the vision of the technical devices. This is why I decided to enclose everything in black, and only the lighting could be seen when this is lighted. And one of the passerelle, which is traveling into the foyer, is entering the exhibition room and travel as a slope, a ramp, to reach the roof and to go outside. So you can come from the foyer to the roof by passing inside the exhibition room at mid-level. And thanks to this mid-level, this is also a possibility for having another perspective, another point of view exhibition below. So this offers a lot of possibility for the curators and directors to exhibit into that room. And thanks to the glass surfaces of the fountain and also of the glass surfaces of in between the foyer and the exhibition room, where I installed the lighting, the surface above, the square, the urban square above the museum is lighted by the glass roofs of the museum below. And we painted the neighbors in white to have the possibility to project videos on their walls, to use their walls as exhibition space. For the restaurant, which is under the little structure that I had to keep, I created the javelots, the lighting also, the javelots by research plants that are inside the restaurant and outside as masts on the terrace. And inside the cafe, as I said to you, we are inside the street and we are facing the housing in front. And what is particular in that building, you have 3 levels of connection to the neighbors. The ground floor is connected to the ground floor of the building. The terrace is again a connection to the other building at the 3rd level, and in between you have the cafe. So every levels of the housing blocks around are connected to different places into the museum, and the cafe is colorful. Because usually people believe that I do only black and red, but this one is black, red, yellow, orange, other colors also. The toilets. I sometimes present toilets because I love to design toilets. And why do I love to design toilets? It's because toilets are the only place in architecture where you don't have any regulation. The only thing that you have to fulfill is the dimension, because you have to have a certain space, the question of ventilation and lighting. But nobody asks you to do something specific with regulation. And this is why I believe strongly that toilets are a place for experimentation. This is a place where you can experiment because this is a place that everybody uses, but at the same time, this is sometimes neutral, ordinary, or ugly. But I prefer that it's nice, beautiful, and make you smiling. So in the toilets of the museum in Rome, the box is like a box that had been installed under the old structure that I had to keep on the site. And this is like a box, a container covered by outside stainless steel, polished stainless steel, and polished mirror stainless steel, and inside the same. And at both extremities of the space in the center, I have mirrors on both extremities. So that means that the space is repeated infinitely. So these toilets have been designed in reference to a film by Jacques Tati, a French director. They did that movie in '65 when he wanted to express the ultra-modernity of the cities that were coming at the mid of the 60s. And in this movie, the main character is traveling through a city which is totally cold, totally smooth, totally bright. There is no asperity, no rugosity, even no smell. Even we don't know that in the movie, but we can't perceive that in the movie. But I'm sure that there were no smell. So everything is neutral and reflective. So I decided to do my toilet in reference to that. This is why it's totally reflective, it's totally smooth, it's totally bright. And in the center, when you go out of the toilet, you have just this object, which is a glass block, white glass block, with a kind of a landscape in depression above it. So to wash your hands, you have to make manipulating your hands above this object. And at one point, you cross an infrared ray. And when you cross the infrared ray, the water is coming up, and the dryer is acting up again. So for washing your hands, you have to become an actor in the toilet, to play with your hands, and you wash your hands and you dry your hands. And it becomes red, because as I usually say, the ultra-modernity, bright, neutral, and cold didn't happen, and we prefer to have a warmer one, and that's why it's red. This is another museum that I delivered 2 years later after the macro. And this is in Rennes, in Brittany, in my origin region. And this is a contemporary art museum for the region. And it was a specific place where it was a competition that I won. And it was in 2005. So that means it has been delivered in 7 years, in 6 years, and the macro in 10, but okay. And so the particularity of this place is that piece of art. So this piece of art was not erected when we started the competition, but we knew that it will be erected. And the artist who did that is a French old woman who was a concrete artist, and she was doing only 2-dimensional art. And this is only 3-dimensional art. So this piece is 72 stones of granite, which are playing with the number 9. So every piece is 72 by 81 centimeters width, and the height is 4.5 meters. And she gave constraints for the construction of the museum. She said that she didn't want to have to be lighted from the museum on her piece. She didn't want to have light. And she asked also to be minimal and to be silencious as for the facade in front of her piece. So I decided to respect what she was asking, so I decided to do a black monolith. And this is a black monolith with above a kind of a flying roof, black also. And this height, which is the middle of the height of the facade, is exactly in perspective at the height of the stone. So this is a reference to the stones. This is this line. Above, this surface is the facade of the main exhibition room, which is lounging all the front facade on the back. And this is covered by black mirrored stainless steel. And depending on the weather, this black mirror stainless steel becomes sometimes blue, sometimes gray, sometimes black. And underneath, this is gray glass. And this gray glass is perceived as black during the day when the light is outside and not inside, not so much. And it changes colors depending on the time and the weather. And this main exhibition room is hanging to a cantilever to the back block. And the back block is in concrete. And this is a black concrete block. But on this photo, you perceive it as gray because the weather is dry. When the weather becomes humid and when it's raining, it's perceived as black. So these 3 volumes are 3 blacks and 3 volumes in black, but with different materials that change of perception during the time, depending on the weather, depending on the time in the day. So this is a silencious monolith. So you enter here, and when you enter inside, everything is lighted. This is natural light everywhere. Because I cut this monolith with an oblique line, which is crossing all the volume and creating a big atrium in the center of the space. And this atrium is 30 meters high because it goes to the roof, to the basement with the storage. And this is a space where you can't go inside when you arrive because you are facing the back side of the auditorium. And to go on the other side, to go traveling the museum, you have to go back to the facade and you have to travel on these steps to climb the museum, the space, to go to the extremity. And on the way, you discover that the glass is transparent and you see back the piece of art which were outside. And at the end of this promenade, in between the auditorium and the facade, which is very narrow, you come into the cafe. So you start by visiting the cafe, which is black with red ceiling. And on the back side of the cafe, you start to travel inside this vertical void, which is with steps, with ramp, with staircases, sometimes with steps that are anchored into the concrete wall. And you can climb the space until the end with a big lift in the center to make traveling the pieces of art at different levels, because all the levels are different on both sides of this big void in the center. The exhibition rooms are neutral, as in the macro, but open to the outside because depending on the orientation, this is east, this is facing east, so, and there is a park. So I wanted to make entering the park into the exhibition room. And on the back side, we are north, and in the south, we are not open at all. And we go to the very top of the museum, where at different levels, we find a library, we find educative places, we find administration and 3 big exhibition rooms. And down at the bottom, all the surface down and the basement are the storages. The toilets, again, in that place, this is written that it's toilets, thanks to the light. And the partition between the women and the men is undulated and covered with mirror stainless steel. And because of that, it perturbs, even if it's a very little space, it perturbs the space that you are in, the perception of the limit, and also the size of this space. And when you are looking at you inside, because of this undulation, you are sometimes convex and sometimes concave, you are never perceived as yourself directly because you are thinner or larger and demultiplied. So this is an exhibition for yourself in that toilet. And in the night, the relation between the top and the bottom is changing. the top becomes darker and the bottom, because we are lighted inside, the auditorium becomes a kind of a lantern, and when in the dark totally, this becomes a real lantern without lighting the piece of art of the artist. In 2015, we delivered another museum in China this time, and this museum is an archaeological and paleontological museum dedicated to the Homo erectus that was discovered, which was one of the oldest one at this time, that has been discovered in one of the grots or the cave inside this mountain. And when I came to visit the site, I was walking into the grots where they discovered the bones of the Homo erectus, and they discovered the bones of two people, one woman and one man. And it was really moving me when I was walking into that grot, because I was thinking that I'm walking on the floor which has been walked by the Homo erectus. So this is very particular. So I found that this mountain is really, really belonging to them, and this is really their place. This is why I decided to bring the museum into the mountain, because we had the possibility to localize or to implant the museum where we wanted on the site, which was very large. And I decided to bring it back to the museum, to the mountains. So we started by playing with the contour lines of the site, by lifting them, making them lower, playing with the curved and all the lines to build at the end a model, which is recomposing the different contour lines, but close to the mountain. And at the end, this is a part of the mountain that has been bring out, and the landscape is coming up above the museum to recompose, to rebuild again the landscape and the continuity with the mountains on the back. So there is interconnection between the architecture and the landscape, with a kind of distinction depending on the nature of the composition of the landscape, but this is really a continuity. And all the facade, which is in glass, is protected by lines of stones that are rebuilding or redesigning the contour lines that were before. Inside the museum, again, this one is a huge museum of 20,000 square meters, and I had to create a kind of a promenade to make people being able to choose where they wanted to go for visiting. And because of the entrance place, it was not at the center, but on one of the side. And I proposed to create a kind of an atrium with creating a hall into the first floor, which is not regular, and making it moving a little bit, sliding a little bit from one floor to this other floor, to the third floor, etc., because this is not at the same place. And having the possibility to travel with these escalators from floor to floor, which are not at the same place. And as soon as you can start to climb up, you have to travel a little bit to go there, to turn around, to go there. And by turning around this atrium, the visitors are able to discover what is exhibited on both sides of the museum, and to be able to choose what do they want to visit in first and second and third, until they go to the top. Like that. And I do also offices building. And this project that I will show you is in Lyon. And this is the headquarters of a huge company of events. And this is a place in the confluence, which is in between the river Rhône and the river Saône, where there is the peninsula of the end of the center of Lyon, which is here exactly. And this development is a huge development where they started to build in 2000, and they are finishing at the end of this 2020, and they will have built 1 million of square meters by creating new spaces, new places, new commercial places, new offices, new area, etc. And the development of on the river bank here was under the direction of an institution in charge of rivers and canals and all what is the rivers in France. And they decided to do a competition for building all these objects. It was a place where this building was a former custom building, and it was for renovation. Another one was for the salt, because it was a place where we still have 2 or 3 of these cranes to transfer the goods from the boats to the harbor, because it was a former, this place was the former harbor of the city, industrial harbor. And on the other side, they decided to build a museum, and this is done by Copy-Mail Blau, and this is it is a kind of a signal at the entrance of Lyon. So I won one of these pavilions, and I won this one, the last one at the end of the peninsula. And I decided, and I was supposed to do an object, a parallelepiped, which is installed calmly on this site like the others, but my site was like that. And I decided to make pivoting the top part of the building. And so that means that my site is a rectangle like that. And I had this parallel rectangle above, and I make it pivoting by having all the offices spaces, the offices floor, the 4 floors of offices, pivoting to go to the river, because the river is here, and to keep on the site only the ground floor and the mezzanine above, which is for events and public spaces, to create an atrium in the center, and to build that with, in reference to the industrial harbor, with huge pylons. And we built that with 3 big pylons into the atrium, with a huge beam in transversal, crossing in oblique 2 pair of beams also, and a perimetral one, and to suspend all the floors to this system of beams above. So that means building from the top to the bottom. And so the first part of the construction was to build a floor of car park below, and then to build this column in concrete, which is for the shafts and the toilets, for all the irrigation technical irrigation of the building, because there is no other in the building, and to bring by boat the 3 pylons and the beams, and to build that. And after that, to make this, to hang this little system of hanging to hang the floors. So when you see the beams, which is in the center of the building, this is nearly 6 meters high. You get the people on the bottom. And this is really a huge infrastructure work for building an office building. So at the end, this is that. And this is a cantilever of 24 meters going to the river, yeah, and from this place. On the facade, we were asked generally in the competition, because of the competition, to work for an artist and to integrate a piece of art into the building. And I asked Phil Cevarini, who is a Swiss artist who lives in Paris, to work with me and to transform the perception of the facade of my block. And he said that he came to me and saying, architecture is arrogant because architecture is erasing the landscape that was pre-existing before. So I want to reinsert the landscape on the back on your building. That means that having a photo, as you can see on this facade, which is exactly the landscape which is behind. So this bridge is here, and you see the bridge, you see the river on the other side. So he took pictures on the 4 directions of the building, and we reapplied that in the first laminated glass that we had at the exterior of the facade. And thanks to that piece of art, we decided together what is the density of the image, because the density of the image was given in discussion with the thermal engineer to have some specific grades or specific gray to protect the lighting, to have too much sun lighting into the building. So the piece of art was used as a solar protection for the glass block. And the staircase from the terrace above is going down, going on the floor, which is a place on the site, and after going outside. So everything is particular on this building, and the surface is again blurred, because what do you see there? It's the glass, the laminated glass outside where you have the piece of art, but there are 3 layers of glass, 3 layers of facade. There is the outside one, which is a single laminated glass. We have a void of 20 centimeters, and we have after that a double glass facade. And in between that double glass and the single glass, we have the transfer of all the air of the floors to change the air continuously and to renew the air inside the building. So you see the size of the cantilever, the height, which is 7 meters here, with the people which are there. And underneath, we have kept the line and the position of the atrium, and this is covered with a glass ceiling where you can look through when you are passing under, and you look through the building until the roof. The first floor, the ground floor, and the mezzanine in the ground floor is an event space. It's a public space. This is why it's not so much furniture, because this is a place where they can change and exhibit many things. And inside, in the center, we have these big pylons, and with some pass rails to cross the space at every level, to make people connected through the atrium, and having the possibility to have a staircase, the lifts, and all the lifts and the staircase are in the pylons. And this is a place to move and to exchange and to meet the others. The space itself, the office part is also totally transparent, with blocks of desk and place for working. And because the building is not very, has no so much possibility to keep the heating during the day, we had to avoid the false ceiling, and we kept the false floor to have all the irrigation, the horizontal irrigation, to bring electricity and energy to each desk, but we avoid to keep the full ceiling, and we had to design and to position the way of the path of the different shafts. And we were facing at a point a certain question: how do we solve the question of acoustic, and how do we solve the question of lighting? So at one, I decided to do a drawing with an object, which is an acoustic panel with light underneath, and thanks to the textile that is covering it, it's diffusing the light above each block of desk, and at the same time it's absorbing the sound, and it works quite well. And this is a petal done we have developed after that by Lectio plan. And the toilets, as usual, they are quite normal, but they are all in red, and they are looking at outside to the city. And the place to wash your hands is a specific basin when you can, under the glass, check the hands of the people on the other side. In Paris, we had before this old and long, very long warehouse, which was from the 60s, from the 60s, and it's 600 meters long. And it was a place where a lot of companies and a lot of company had their storage. They were storage. And the city bought it at the end of the 80s and decided to transform that and to do something with that. So they did a competition, and from this competition, Remcolas won the competition and proposed to develop that as a new area, a new quarter in the city, by bringing into the ground floor level commerce, to bring sometimes inside the old warehouse also commercial, and to build, thanks to the studies that they did for the structure, the existing structure of this warehouse, they discovered that they could have built 6 floors above the structure, and they proposed to do 2 floors below of car park. So this is the result with a scheme of Remcolas, where you have the ground floor, which will be commercial, the storage, which was the former warehouse, who becomes also a big commercial center, above housing building, to cut the project with in oblique, to help the tramway, which is on the boulevard, to go outside and to have a connection with another line, to have the blue one, which are two offices building, light blue, which is for the multimedia startup incubator, and to cut the end of the building for doing a competition for public services like sport facilities and a little primary school. And they choose the architects and they call me for this one. So I was asked to do the multimedia startup incubator for the city. And it's a 16,000 square meters of incubator for startups. So it's a public one, the bigger public one in Paris. So this is, but this is very big and very deep in terms of between the two facades. And I have an atrium. I had to keep an atrium in the center because this atrium is connecting at the lower level of the car park. This is a way out of the car park and also of the metro, of the metro line, which is passing on the other side. So Remcolas gave just a simple regulation for doing our project. He asked for having crystal, mineral, 4 layers of different materials. He wanted that we keep the concrete structure on the facade. He proposed that we stay transparent on the bottom part because it was commercial, to go back 2 meters back on the facade to create an articulation between this volume and the upper volume, and to do that in mineral. So this is the office building, and this is can go common with sport facilities. And I was thinking that because I was not doing a normal offices building, I was doing an incubator for multimedia startup. So I was thinking these people are creative, are supposed to be creative, and they are inventing ideas and discovering ideas all the time. So I decided to do bubbles on the facade, and irregular bubbles because you don't know when how you are creative. So, and it was quite complicated to make it accepted by the client itself, which is a public institution, and thanks to the city helps me to make the client accepted my bubbles. And these bubbles are on a white facade on the south facade, which is you see the different layers of different volumes. And on the black north facade, this is black. And in between, we have an east facade, and the only one, which is black and white. So as soon as we decided to do the facade like that, I said that the general order, the general guide of the office of the building is black, to be always black and white, except for some meeting rooms that are like that. So this is the entrance hall, the entrance lobby, with black and white cut in the middle, and suspended above a bubble, which is a meeting room, red. On the back side of this lobby, you have a second lobby, which is also black and white. And again, there is another bubble for meeting rooms. And you can go by taking the staircase, taking a passerelle, and entering into this bubble for having your meeting. And the meeting, because we are in a bubble, the bubble doesn't have regular tables. This is a totally irregular table because you can sit as you want and you can organize your meeting as you want. At every floor, the lifts are arriving on a space which is black and white. On the back side, at every floor, you have a place where to sit and to go to work everywhere as you want, because everywhere you have the Wi-Fi and you can be connected. Because this is 16,000 square meters, at the end, this is more than 1,000 people working into that building. And when you are at the top floor, you have this kind of spaces where you have through the windows, through the bubbles, the possibility to have an overview on the city. So this is quite interesting. And there is a little terrace on the last floor to have again a new overview about the city. Last year or 2 years ago now, because I don't know why, but since this year, I forget always the 2020. So I always speak about 2019 as last year. Thanks to, maybe this is the COVID would give me that impression. I don't know why, but this is not last year. This is 2 years ago that we deliver another offices building in Paris that I call the Twist. And the Twist is a place where I have a plot like that. This is along the street. There is the trans lines coming from Gare de l'Est, and this is a bridge, and the trend lines are a bridge over the boulevard, which is here, and this block are this regulation, going up a little block, and having this possibility to cut them. I decided to cut them in 3 blocks because this block doesn't exist anymore, and to do that in 3 blocks, and these 3 blocks are the first block, which is at the entrance on the boulevard, has on the top a little square, a little cube that I make pivoted, and this pivoting way give a twist into the building to give it, to have the possibility to have facade on different directions. And why? Because as I told you, I'm on the train lines, and this facade as the first block, the second block, and the last block, the first block. And the first block is not only going at this floor, but is going down at the level of the boulevard underneath, which is 8 meters below. And under that building, we have a huge car park that you had to build for 350 seats for cars. And we have to maintain the possibility of the train lines to be stable because the train was never stopped during the construction. And on the other side, they decided to build this bridge above the new street, which is on the other side that doesn't exist before. So I am in between, this site is in between 2 bridges above the boulevard, which is underneath that. And this facade and this block has been pivoted to make it, to have an ambiguity about where is this facade and where it is oriented. So you can see that. Underneath there is a tramway, there is a car, there is a cycle line, there are pedestrians, and there is a tunnel here to bring the people to the police building, which is here close to the new headquarters for the court in the tower that you've seen on the former slides. And on the other side, this is a kind of a head of the building, and after that you have the blocks. And in between the blocks, we have like greenhouses, and these greenhouses are transparent, and inside we have the staircase and the lift. This is a place for having the vertical promenade into the building to reach every floor on both sides. And this is a place, thanks to the large floors at the top of each floors of steps, we have the possibility to meet the other people. So, and this is the total height going down, because, and here, this is the back, on the back side of this level, there is a car park. And I didn't want to have the car park facing the boulevard, and I wanted to have spaces, like little offices on this side, so this is a normal street. This is a place where you can have offices on the street again. And this is the entrance of the car park, and this is the entrance of the tunnel for the prisoner to go to the police building on the backside. So to build the head, we had to build, and we have built in Paris, no, in Paris today, we have been asked everywhere to build with wood. And we studied that during the competition because it was a competition. And we decided not to build with a wooden structure, but only with wooden floors. But it's mixed floors, mixed structure. So the vertical structure is in steel to have it as with a minimum impact on the floors. The floors themselves, the floors themselves are built with, how can you can say that? This is wooden beams with concrete attached to it. And this is a mixed structure, wood and concrete. And the concrete is in cantilever on both sides. So this creates a specific ceilings in every floor. And we add this part, which is in cantilever outside. So this is a quite complex structure for the head of the building. And inside, it gives that impression that you have the floor, you have the ceiling, which is composed by wooden beams. And in between these wooden beams, we have gaps. And in that gaps, we have all the shafts and the electricity canals to bring the light, to bring the energy everywhere in the building. The facade on the back are, in this photo, are closed with the louvers are closed, and the louvers are black and white, because depending on when they are opening or not, it plays a game of black and white again. On the staircases, the floor is in wood again, and you have the lift in the center, and the west facade of the greenhouse has a certain comment on dit ça déjà? Print with a kind of dots of printed dots that plays with the light and gives some different lighting and different impression. This is very lively because it depends on the sun and the rotation of the sun. So this is a place where you have a kind of a piece of art into the staircases with different shadows, different dots, whatever. And on the east facade, which is the entrance, we have a place for the cycles with 2 floors in red, and the back side is red, seen from the periphery of Paris, very far. Now we are in Barcelona, where I'm finishing to build, which will be delivered in June, a tower. And this tower is at the end of diagonal. This is diagonal 0, and we are this is diagonal 0, 0, and we are diagonal 0. And it was a former concrete structure that was remaining there since 2008, when the economical crisis. And on the backside, we had on the plot another block. So the client wanted to build to transform that in a tower. And we proposed to demolish the back block, to superpose above this part of tower all the floors, all the surfaces that were on the back plot, to create the superposition of new floors. And thanks to the regulation, we had the possibility to increase the size of the floors from 3 meters or 2 meters, depending difference of the facade. So this is an old structure that we started to build 10 years or 15 years after it had been built, that we had to reinforce, and reinforcing the foundation to support these new floors. And because this foundation were passing through a car park underneath, and this car park is not belonging to us, but to the hotel, which is on the B-side, we had to insert the new foundation into the foundation themselves, so to not creating any other foundation, any pylons into the car park. We had to reinforce the floors to increase by expanding the floors, to create new balconies at every floor, at each floor, to push back the facade as the client asked at the top floor, to create big balconies on the top, and to demolish the 2 first floors on the first part of the towers, to add more surfaces on the top. So that means that the lobby, the entrance lobby, and the restaurant we will under construction now here is 10 meters high, and after that each floor, this is from normal size of floors of flats to the bigger one, to the very big, and to the top big one. Because we are here to little apartments of 45 square meters. From here to here we have 80 to 150. After that we come to 150 to 200. Here we come to 200 to 300, and here this is bigger one. The top part is bigger one. And we decided to make undulating the balconies with not regular, to be not regular, to create impression of spaces on the balcony when they are narrow, but we have a bigger space at one place. And this is a photo that I took 1 month ago. And so you see that the bottom part, which is a restaurant, is made with glass, which is standing all the height of the 10 meters high, undulated glass facade that is sitting behind the pillars of the former building. And it will be like that. And this is like that, the entrance of the lobby. And this is an image. And now the chandelier with the javelots is built. The red wall is done. The garden, the green wall is done, but I don't have finishing. I don't have the last finishing. And I will go tomorrow, and I know that I will see the desk tomorrow, and I will see the seats in 2 or 3 days, in 2 or 3 weeks. And this is connected directly to the garden on the back, because we have designed also the garden on the back. And this is seen from below with concrete panels that are closing the ceiling above the ground floor. And you see the irregularity of the facade, which is undulating, slowly undulated, to create new different spaces at every floor. And on the top part, at the top, this is a rooftop with an infinite pool facing the sea. And this is 1 month ago, when they were trying to look at the waterproofing of the swimming pool. And the day was gray, but you see that there is continuity between when you will see that, from the water of the swimming pool and the sea, when we are 1 meter above the sea. And I show you some details. So this is the bathtub in the corner that you are opening to the view. And this is, for example, the kitchen island. So we have designed in that building, we have designed everything. We have designed the kitchen island, the bathtub, the basin, the wash basin, the amenities, the yoga room, everything. But I don't have yet all the pictures. So next time you will show that. And it's a total global design tower for residency, high-class residency. And it will be the restaurant. This is an image, but it's under construction now. And we will see that later on, because it will open after the summer, I think. It will be finished before, but it will open only after the summer. Sometimes I do also a yacht in Italy with an Italian client. And it was in between 2003 and 2006. And this is a sailing boat, a super yacht, which is 42 meters long, and the mast is 50 meters high, and the big sail is 900 square meters. So this is a black sailing boat, with a totally flush deck, because we discussed that with the client, and I proposed to design the deck as totally flush. And this is not, I didn't design the hull of the boat, because this is particular. But I designed a lot of details on this deck. I redesigned the deck with a continuous surface of wood to increase the winches and the mast, and having the details of the transformation of the surface. And the windows are on both sides as a sheet of black glass inserted into the wooden floor. And in the night, the light is coming from this same place on the both sides of the boat. Inside, everything is made. There are many sliding partitions to recompose the boat, the spaces as you want. You can see that in this central space where you have the kitchen, but you can close the kitchen, and the bar is cut to have the possibility to close the kitchen and to keep the bar in the central space. This is a master bedroom where we design also everything, the bed, the back side of the bathroom, which is a total mirror glass surface, and inside, and we design also the sink, and this is in mirror stainless steel to make it, again, a bit ambiguous in terms of form and in terms of perception, because it's reflected in the back mirror. So this was really a great joy to design that, because it was I was very glad to do that. And when you do a boat, you have to design everything in section, and you have to make, and the section is adapted, has to be precise, because every centimeter, every 10 centimeters, it changes the design of the object that you are designing. And I do sometimes a smaller construction. So this is an artist residence that I did in a little village above Grenoble for an art collector who is living in that little manor. This is above the valley of Grenoble, and she asked me, because she's a woman, she asked to build the residence of art for artists into that little piece of wood. And I wanted to give the possibility for the artists to have a view to the valley, even if they have trees in front of them. So I proposed for the first time to build in wood. I decided to build in wood. And this wood is done like a Silencious block seen from the garden of this manor, because I didn't want that she will be perturbed by the life of the artist overlooking her place. So this is the backside of the place, of the artist residence, overlooking the Alps. And this block is twisted to go down and to orient the different windows to different places for the sun, for making the sun entering inside. And we have the workshop space down, a little living room, a little bedroom, and the belvedere. This is a workshop place. This is a stair in the center. And this is a belvedere overlooking the valley and the Alps at the back. So this is a total wooden black building. And I did a total glass white building house in Brittany, in Carantec, for an Englishman who had wanted to build that by himself, because he's an industrial in wood, in glass and steel, and he has a disease in his eyes that his view is disappearing slowly. So this is a double glass with a steel structure inside, and a translucidity given by a specific material inserted into the double glass. So, and this is a parallelepipedic volume inclined with a little patio for entrance and two little black volume of glass connected to it. And inside, this is total glass, even the staircase. He did the staircase by himself, so it's not exactly my design, but he decided to do that without telling me. But why not doing that in glass? And this is a very strange perception when you go in, because you have the feeling that maybe you are a little bit confused about, because you are not in a space where the lines are not vertical, but you keep back your verticality and your stability very easily. But what is the more impressive is the fact that whatever the space and wherever you are, the quantity of light and the light is always homogeneous. So this is a real cocoon where the light is constant, the same everywhere, and you don't have shadow. You don't have a more bright light somewhere. This is always like being in a cocoon. And this is very impressive, like being outside of the world. I didn't design that. This is a bubble house that was built in the 60s and 70s, and the client and the owners asked me to renovate it. And I started by playing, this is incredible, this house. And I started to play with the living room by painting in white the interior of the surface of the living room, but redesigning and recoloring the cushion of the benches and the sofas by playing with 12 different colors, because I was thinking that we are from the 60s and the 70s, and it was the time of the pop art. And I wanted to make this house like a pop art. And this is a bathroom, one bathroom, pink, one bedroom, which is with 3 different kinds of pink, another one which is a mandarin color, another one which is orange, another one which is between 2 or 3 pinks in the doors, the passage, which were there with different colors of pink, different kind of pink. Something that I would have dreamed to design, which is a shell which was there in a toilet. the interior-exterior corridors that was connected to different rooms inside the house, which is 600 square meters in total. The last bedrooms that where we use all the colors that we were using in the house, because I don't show you all the house, by playing with the 12 colors like that, and designing a lot of furniture again, even if some were there and I didn't touch them. But it was very joyful to do that, very playful. In 2001, I won a competition for reshaping the telephone box in the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. And as soon as I won the competition, it was really a little competition, they asked me to think about the furniture for the conference hall. And they asked me to work in coherence with the spirit of the building. And the building was designed by Marcel Breuer, and the engineer was Pierluigi Nervi. And they played with the concrete like a voluptuous and sensuous concrete everywhere. And because it's really twisted in many places, I decided to play and to design in their spirit. So they asked me at the beginning to do the long contour for the 11 delegation of the UNESCO, for having 11 delegations at the same time. So this is a very long contour of 11 meters long, and I decided to do it in plastic because the 50s were the heroic time of the plastic. And this is a desk, a long contour that we did with a little shipyard outside Paris, molded with him the form and the shape, and after that decided to make it in color, an orange color, which is in a selection of colors that we did in the fresco, which is on the back side, which is 50 square meters fresco in this place, done by Picasso, and in the hall. After that, they asked me to provide furniture, seats, and they needed to have 40 or 45 seats. And I was thinking that I can really play with seating. I was dreaming of doing seats forever. And I asked if I can provide them the design of the seats and not buying something. And they said, you do as you want. So I decided to come back to the one seat done by Pierre Paulin, the French designer from the 60s to 2019, I think that he died 2 years ago. And he did in the 60s and the 70s a seat that he called the snake. It was a very long articulated sofa that was used in the main hall in a museum, in a bank, administration, etc. But I wanted to design a seat. So I decided by starting to design a seat, which is just a seat and a back, to design a confidant, which is twice seats together with a twisted back and a kind of an armchair with the back and the seat which are connected to each other. And each of them have exactly the same side. And you can, whenever you want, connect them together to create a snake thanks to the confidant into the space. So creating a snake with independent and different autonomous seats. And the color of the leather is in reference to a tapestry by Le Corbusier, also in the same place. And you can articulate them like that. They needed to have a table, so I decided to design a table in plastic again, with a structure underneath, inside this shape, and 4 little legs. This is 3 meters long, and this is very light. And they needed to have a paper basket, and I played with aluminum folded and polished with to blur the place of the shape of the folds and an ashtray that now they can't use. And now we are designing with the people with who I was doing the seats to repropose the table, and it was done last year. And the table is done in mirror stainless steel underneath, with a black wooden surface above, but underneath this is like a mirror. And to transform the paper basket into a stool to sit on the table, at the table, and always also in mirror stainless steel. An art gallery at the same time, some years later, asked me a place for storage, a box something for storage, and I did a box, which is 1 meter, 20 centimeters long, that you can open by making sliding a part or lifting the other part. And inside this is red. And I do lamps. With Susheplan, I continue to do lamps. So we did that Soleil Noir, which is a suspended 1 meter and 20 centimeters long suspended lamp with an indirect lamp lighting, which is above this disc, and using the underneath surface to do the reflector to bring the light down. And in the Biennale of Gwangju in South Korea, 6 years ago, they asked me to design a lamp, and I proposed that stone, which is covered by a stainless steel mirror, and underneath this is the lighting, that you can have it on your table or in the garden, everywhere you want. And one of my friends is an art designer of a factory for knife, and he called me once, to ask if I wanted to design a knife, and I said, why not? And he said, this is a folding knife. And I said, oh, this is even better, because I love folding knives, because they are the tools for workers, and every company, every kind of worker has a different kind of folding knife. And this is, but how to design a knife when it's a very little object that you have in your hand, when you're an architect with designing a big object, which is a building. So I decided by using pasta to do a model, by playing with the pasta in my hand, and after that having the model of the blade, and we inserted the model of the blade into the object that I was designing with in my hand, and bringing that to the different people of my office to check if everybody is comfortable with this shape. And I brought the model to the art director, and he said, you are crazy, you did a model for a knife. I said, yes, because I don't know how to design it, because this is complicated for me to design a knife. And this is, his name is Le Noir, because it's black. And the art gallery where I was doing the first exhibition that I renovated in 2007, the director has a dog, and for the first exhibition he lives with his dog all the time, and the dog has a dog basket, and he wanted to bring back the dog basket in the gallery that I had renovated before. And I said, no way, there is no possibility to have an ugly dog basket into your gallery. So I decided to design a basket for the dog, the house for the dog. So we came to visit the dog, and we measure it when he was lying, sitting or standing, and we proposed this aluminum folded black basket house with little mattress inside that we asked a lady in the area to sew for us, a black one for Victor, and Victor was very enjoying that house since at least until last 2 years when he died. And after that, I said to the art gallery, now I have done for dogs, I can do for human to mice. And in 2013, he asked me, he said, okay, this is time now for mice, and I did that for the mice. So if you have mice in your house, you can buy a little mice house for giving them a comfortable place. Thank you very much.
Oh, merci beaucoup, Madame Odile Decq. Il a été un grand plaisir de vous écouter. Je vous fais une question, une simple question. Vous n'avez jamais eu peur de risquer dans votre carrière? Qu'est-ce que vous pouvez dire aux jeunes dans ce domaine?
Vous voulez que je réponde en français ou en anglais?
Ouais, en anglais, ça bien.
Okay. Take risk in your life is necessary. You need to take risk because living is risky. So you can die every day. You can die by crossing the street. You can die when you walk in the street or whatever. And so why not taking risk? Because if you take risk, you always have better, what can I say? You can be always with a better surprise. It's never negative. It's always positive. When you take risk, you have to be able to go to the end. So that means that you take risk, but you think how to make it reasonable. So you take risk and you decide to do where do you want to go? And as soon as you do that, you never have to change your way. You have to go to the end. But in the meantime, as I said at the first slide, by comparing the project, doing a project to selling, you have to be able to negotiate. So this is a way you organize a discussion with your client, with engineers, with the city, with everywhere, with everybody who is interfering into your work. And you have to be able to negotiate without losing your cap, the focus that you want. So I can't say that this is at the very beginning, you have to start to do that. But even from the beginning, you can start to take little risk when you propose something. And the risk has to be measured, has to be calculated and estimated that you can negotiate it to go to the end. And this is my way of thinking since the beginning of my life. So this is not only in architecture, for everything.
Merci beaucoup. Ouais, c'est tout et on vous remercie pour le temps que vous nous avez donné. Et quand vous verrez à Padoue, on est bien content de vous avoir.
Ça me ferait plaisir. Ça me fera plaisir aussi. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Il n'y a pas de questions dans l'audience, il n'y a pas de...
Non, on n'a pas la possibilité de faire.
Ah, d'accord.
Ouais. Okay. Et je donne une communication aux personnes qui écoutent. Allora, niente, vi lascio con questa, con Madame Odile che ci ha concesso questo tempo e vi comunico anche che c'è una serie di conferenze che l'Università della Sapienza di Roma sta organizzando su questo tema. E se volete eventualmente informarvi, si chiama Le tecniche sapienti. E niente, noi ci vediamo per la prossima volta, il 20 maggio, con Farshid Musavi, sempre per questo ciclo di conferenze. Grazie ancora di Decq, merci Madame di Decq, arrivederci.
Okay. Arrivederci. Bye bye.